we're going to talk about House of Ashes. First and foremost, welcome to the video, guys. My name is Gemma, and I really wanted to get on camera and talk about, very seriously actually, the mediocrity of the latest dark anthology series game, which is House of Ashes. You must be familiar with this kind of game. Supermassive Games, for me, launched onto my radar with Until Dawn. It was an awesome game with lots of different characters set on a mountain. It was very kind of early 2000s horror, whodunit, or there's a killer on the loose, and you know, blah, 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 lots of quick time events, and every decision you make obviously affects the next kind of episode in the game, or potentially even the ending. You can finish the game with all of your characters alive or one of your characters alive. And it was really revolutionary for its time, but Until Dawn released a number of years ago. But we're still in this era from Supermassive Games where we're now with the same kind of cookie cutter game that has kind of come out with Man of Medan, Little Hope, My Dog's Barking Downstairs, and now more recently House of Ashes. I only bought the game purely because the reviews were so darn good, and that's where I really want to start, because this game has been getting between 7 and 8 out of 10 from some of the major, my dog is still barking, from some of the major review outlets like IGN. I don't think it's worth an 8, and today I'm going to tell you exactly why I don't think it's worth an 8. So please watch this entire video, please get comfortable, and just listen to what I have to say, and then you can formulate your own decision. So we're going to start with graphics. I played through this game in its entirety on my PlayStation 4 Pro, so I can't comment what it's like on my PS5. PS4 Pro, which to be fair, more people have a PS4 Pro than they do a PS5, so for me this is a little bit more valid. The graphics were fantastic. It's exactly what you would have expected from a Supermassive Games production. You know, we've got really famous actors and actresses doing all the motion capture, everything down to the movement of the lips during the dialogue. It was good. It was really, really, really good. But I couldn't help but think to myself, you know what? I'm over this. And the reason I say that is because nothing wowed me about the graphics, nothing wowed me about the environments until you get to the very end, which I'll talk about in a minute. Nothing wowed me. You predominantly take place, the bulk of this gameplay takes place in an underground tomb, if you would. You go as far as 3,500 feet underground, and then you go up back to the surface. So the colour palette tended to be the same throughout. It was the dull browns, oranges, blacks, greys, very, very dull in terms of its colour palette, which I do think had a bit of an impact in the way the graphics were projected to me. There was a shift right at the end where the colour palette completely swapped and the graphics looked actually a little bit better because we had lots of neon greens and purples and really nice kind of cobalt blue shining through. And I'm not going to spoil it, but if you play the game yourself, you'll know exactly what I mean when you get to the very end stages of the game. So presentation and graphics wise, it was good in terms of its graphics, good in terms of its motion capture, but I'd seen it before. I'd seen it in Until Dawn, and for me, the technology and what Supermassive Games were trying to do hasn't really evolved enough for me to say, hey, go buy House of Ashes, because it was good at best. Next, let's talk about the story.
Ready to go dark.
To descend into the unknown alone is extremely brave.
Man out, hold fire.
Or extremely foolish.
We're gonna stop.
So it's Iraq and it's 2003 and we're searching for the non-existent weapons of mass destruction. Yes, that was a pile of shit, wasn't it? We are a special force task of Marines, and unfortunately we get roped into something that we don't expect, and we are pulled far, far underground into ancient ruins. Now that we've gotten the fall out of the way, these Marines soon realise that they're separated somehow. This really does feel like an early 2000s horror movie, like I said. Oh no, we have injured people, lots of uncertainty amongst the group, and lots of scary things which actually aren't scary at all. I actually really wanted more jump scares, but you're kind of getting the picture as to where the story's going here. We're being hunted by vampires, if you haven't guessed it. Vampires, but to be fair to the story's credit, these vampires are well executed. executed. They look incredibly scary, and they do remind me of the Reapers from Blade 2. If you're not familiar with that film, check it out. So, we're up against vampires, and eventually everybody starts to figure out their shit. But is everybody loyal? Well, that's down to you, because the story is reliant on quick time events. And unfortunately, you don't get many of them in this lengthy cutscene of a video game, but when you do, the story can be relatively rewarding. As you can see here, we've got a bit of a button mashing event going on, but this scene seemed to last just for ages, to be absolutely honest with you. I think the story, it was good, it carried well, but it dragged a little bit, and perhaps that could have been patched in with better storylines, better character acting, or perhaps just more QTE. Nonetheless, the overall goal is to find a way out, and find a way out we do, but I'm not going to tell you how because that would be a spoiler. You'll need to play it for yourself to decide whether or not this game is a solid 8, as everybody keeps telling me, or if it's a solid 6 or potentially a 5.5. So overall, the story is gripping in parts, but for the bulk of the ride, it seriously lacks, and it hasn't moved on enough from the 2015 release of Until Dawn.
So yeah, the story was pretty gripping, and even Jess, who'd watched the entire playthrough, had commented to me after the stream, I was gripped on the story, Gemma, and I think that's fantastic, but what it raises to me is Jess hasn't played those kinds of games before, so for her this was a really good experience going into it, so perhaps she may have enjoyed the story a little bit more than, say, what I would have enjoyed the story. I did feel that the interactions between the characters were really, really good, but at times I felt they were very, very limited because I felt they were very, very limited at times because the dialogue options wavered between 2 to 3 options, really. There was nothing more. But I guess it worked because the character interaction, it projected well throughout the story. Again, good at best for me, a 6 or a 7 in terms of the story. QTE, quick time events, are what these games have been built around. We saw it really, really well in Until Dawn. In fact, there were so many quick time events during Until Dawn that I was on the edge of my seat from start to finish. Quick time events in Man of Medan, same thing, you know, few and far between. Little Hope, which I really did enjoy, and then now in House of Ashes, quick time events were present, but for me they were not present enough, and I think this is what a lot of reviewers are missing out on. This game is top heavy with cutscenes. If this was a movie, it'd be a damn good movie, but there were far too many cutscenes and far too many strung out dialogue that completely overshadowed the quick time events. You know, I'd often get to another gate or another door or another opportunity to progress. And I think, you know, maybe we could do something here, but no, the gameplay in itself stopped. We had long drawn out conversations, and then the cutscene itself would open the door and then we would progress. Now, I would have preferred maybe some more QTE to get from A to B, and perhaps a more evolved QTE system. For example, there was no utilization of the shoulder buttons. It was all the buttons on the controller, so the triangle, X, square, and so on and so forth. There was nothing else. We didn't utilize the controller as much as I wanted to for the QTE. I think had that have been implemented, especially as we're going into next generation, it would have made for more immersion. But for me, House of Ashes was very much stuck in the kind of time period when Until Dawn came out. So pre-PS5, pre-Xbox Series, it just didn't do enough for me, and it wasn't frequent enough for me to feel the immersion. I was drifting off during those long cutscenes. It could have been a movie. I could have just sat and watched it. That's how I felt. So we spoke about graphics and presentation. We've spoke about the story. We've spoke about the QTE, which is the primary driver for the game. The conclusion from me is this is an okay game. It will take you between 5 to 6 hours to play through. For me, I was closer to the 5-hour mark than what I was the 6-hour mark. It retails here in the UK at £24.99, and I think that's quite a steep price given the 5 or 6 hours worth of gameplay. And yes, you're arguably meant to play it through again, but I'm just not motivated to play it through again. I now know how every character plays. I now know every character's movements and motion capture on their face. I know what the story's like. There's no element of surprise. So for me, I'm £25 down in my eyes. But that is why we do these things, because I wouldn't have been able to make this video without buying the game. I've streamed it as well over on Twitch. So if you've got a bit of spare cash, it's worth it. But for me, it's just not a big enough leap from the previous games for it to warrant £24.99. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it useful. Let me know in the comment section below and have a lovely day. And I'll catch you guys in the next episode. See you soon.